Let's continue further with our spline rig. Before we get to applying our spline IK, what we're going to do is make sure that our chest bone here is going to be following right with our chest control. So we want somewhat of a direct connection, and what we can do is use our parent constraint option. So with our control selected, we'll shift select our chest bone and go up to constrain, parent constraint. Great. So now as we select it and move it around, notice it's going to move pretty nicely. Well, with this done, we're ready to apply our spline IK. Now, prior to doing that, I do want you to check this out as far as our spine goes. We'll select our bone spine A. We'll even frame it within our outliner, expand it, okay, so we can see its chain. So that's going from bone spine A all the way to bone spine D. You can even make sure that this A is all the way at the top, so when it comes to connecting our spline IK, it'll be easier. But nevertheless, once we're here, if we hit F8 to get to our component mode and go ahead and show our local rotation axis, notice how it's set up for the spine. Now, this is very important for what we're about to do when we set up our advanced twist. Okay, we're going to want to make sure that everything is flowing correctly. If they're not, the twist is not going to come out the way we like it to. So we want to make sure everything is flowing right. And as far as the end bone is concerned, this is not really too important. We just want to really focus on our bones in between. Okay, going from our bone spine A all the way to C. Now, by default, when you use X, Y, Z, it should already be aligned for you. But if you need to, just go ahead and check your chain before you add the spline. Just make sure that everything is aligned properly with your mid joints. Okay, so once you've established that, once you've made that work for you, what we're ready to do now is work on adding our spline IK. So we'll go ahead and select that. And again, that's going from A to D. And I do want to also mention, if we go to the options here, that we're using the default settings. Okay, using number of spans 1, so we'll end up with 4 verts. Don't need any more than that. Okay, and everything else is fine, so we're going to close that out now and work on connecting our spline IK. So that's going to go from A, we'll select that, and we'll control click all the way to D. Great, so there it is. And what we'll do from here, we can go to our channel box, we can give it a name, we can call that SP for spline IK, capital IK, underscore SP for the spine, and 01 for how many. So once that's labeled, it did come with a curve. What you could do is just zoom on in and select it, or you could even see it from here in the outliner, but either way, there is a curve that has come along with it, so we can give that a name. We can call it C SPL for C spline underscore SP for spine 01. So we know exactly what it's for. So now that this has been done, we're not going to want our spine where it's at right now. We want it underneath our upper body or center of gravity control, so everything will work right. So with that selected, we'll shift select our center of gravity, making sure that's selected last, and hit P so it could go right to its parent. And then for our spline IK, of course, that can go right to our IK section or our IK group to keep everything organized. So with it selected, we can just hit Control and select our IK group and hit P. Great. So once that's cleaned up, our next task is going to be to make sure we connect our advanced twist. Now in the past, what I've gone ahead and done was use the twist and the roll as well. But the method we're about to use is going to be a much better option. We're going to get a nicer fall off as we rotate the body, as we're about to see. So with our IK selected, now we need to get to our attribute editor. So we could hit Control A once, and once there, we'll scroll down till we get to our IK solver attributes. Let's go ahead and open that up. From there, we're going to want to get to our advanced twist control options. Alright, so here's what we want to focus on now. Well, if we check this on, notice, alright, this is looking wonderful, and my job is done. No, not quite. We need to do a few things here. For one, we need to switch our world up type. We need to switch that to rotation up, or object rotation up, start and end. So let's go ahead and select that. What that does is opens up these two sections for us, our world up object and our world up to object. What this tells us is what objects do we like to, or would we like to control our twist? Well, we know we want our hips to be controlling our twist as well as our chest. So those are two objects, but in which order? Well, this is really simple. To figure out the order in which to put our controls, it all depends on which control is closest to the start of our joint chain. So since the start of our chain is at bone spine A and it ends at spine D, this tells us that our hip control is actually going to be what controls our first category, our world up object. Okay, since it's right where the start joint is. And our end joint, what's going to control that? Or the twist in that section? Well, that's going to be our chest. So that's also important to note. And also, we before we even get to this section here, we want to make sure we select the right up axis. Now, let me go ahead and uncheck this quickly so we can give our character a breather so he's not twisted up. If we go back to selecting our spine, the start of our spine, and hit F8 to go back to our component mode, so we can see our local rotation axis. To determine our up axis in this case, this is not going to be our X. Notice how that's traveling up our chain. Okay, this is actually going to be our Z. And the way you can look at this is elevator floors. So as we're traveling up the elevator, what floor are we on? We're on the Z floor, Z floor, Z floor, Z floor. So based off of that, for our twist options, we know, all right, we're going to want to use Z. But positive or negative? Well, that all depends on which way the Z is flowing. So as we can see, if we look at our orientation of our scene, we can see the positive Z is flowing like so, okay, going to what will be our left. So therefore, since our Z direction for our spine is also going in that same direction, we're going to want to use positive Z. It's as simple as that. Okay, so now we'll hit F8 to come out of that, and taking all of that information in, we'll go back to our spine and get ready to work on its right connections. So we'll want to check that on again, give our character another twist. He's like, please help me. So let's go ahead and work on our next section. So that's going to be our up axis, which we determined to be our positive Z. And notice it doesn't look much better. But let's go ahead and fix everything up here. For our up vectors, now notice how our number for the up vector, this 1, is in the Y. Well, we're not going to want it in the Y. We're going to be twisting with our Z as the up axis. So we're going to want this 1 actually at the Z. So we'll zero it out, okay, for our two up vectors, and we'll place them, the 1 that is, right in our Z categories or Z attributes. And notice, alright, our character is feeling much better now. Okay, the twist has been fixed. Now we need to determine our up object and our up object 2. Well, we know that our up object is going to be our hip control. That's where the start of the joint chain is. So let's go ahead and put that in. The name of it, we want to make sure the name is right. And if it's not, it'll tell us. But we're going to be using cc underscore hip 01, hit enter. Great. We'll go to the next, and that's going to be cc underscore chest 01, hit enter. So what does this leave us with? Let's go ahead and check out our scene. We'll select our chest, and when we go to the control and rotate it in the Y, notice we're getting this nice twist in the upper body, this nice fall off. Wonderful. And as we move our, not back control, but there we are, our hip control, and as we twist that, notice we're getting a nice fall off in the twist of the hips as well. So this is really cool. Okay. Well, now that this has been done, let's go ahead and stop the lesson here. And I do recommend just going over that lesson again if you need to understand what we've went in, what we've discussed. But again, I'm going to stop the lesson here. And in the next lesson, we're going to work on setting up this spine so we can get some better movement out of it than what we currently have.